Part 1: The ticket that changed everything. It's 9:47 at night. You were standing under gas station lights holding milk bread in a pen. The place smells like burnt coffee. You were tired, just that regular exhausted kind that parks itself right behind your eyes after a long shift. The clerk looks up and asks if you need anything else. You almost say no, then your eyes catch the lottery sign glowing behind the counter. The jackpot number looks absolutely insane, but insane numbers are easy to shrug off when rent is 3 days away from being late. You buy one ticket not because you believe in it, because it costs less than a coffee and feels easier than explaining why you didn't. You fold it once, drop it in your wallet and completely forget about it for the next 3 hours. Dinner gets cold next to your phone. The numbers get read out somewhere online. You pull them up slowly, not because you are excited, but because people like you have learned not to get excited about things like this. First number matches, your brain files it under coincidence. Second number matches, you tell yourself not to be an idiot about this. Third number matches and the room gets weirdly quiet. Fourth number and you were standing up, you don't even remember deciding to stand. Fifth number and your mouth goes completely dry. Last number, your life changes. It doesn't ask, it doesn't warn you, it just changes. You don't scream, you don't jump around, you sit down like something terrible just happened, because your nervous system was built to recognize danger and it has absolutely no framework for this moment. You take a photo of the ticket, then delete it immediately because even that feels like a security risk. You wrap it in an envelope and tuck it inside a book you never finished reading. Then you sit in the dark, lights off, listening to cars pass outside. By midnight you have won everything. You have not slept one single minute. Part 2: Carrying a secret too heavy for your face. Morning shows up like it owns the place. Same alarm, same horrible sound. You stare at the ceiling realizing you may never need that alarm again, and then you get up and go to work anyway because not going would require an explanation you were nowhere near ready to give. You check the ticket twice before leaving. You have hidden it inside a folder, inside a bag, underneath a sweater. Every zipper sounds louder than it should. Every person on the street suddenly looks like they are paying more attention than yesterday. On the bus, a man glances at your bag. You almost move to a different seat. You haven't changed yet, but your fear has already arrived ahead of you. At work, your manager comes to complain about a report you forgot yesterday that would have tightened something in your chest today. It floats past you like smoke. You not apologize, watch him walk away, and quietly wonder what his annual salary looks like. During lunch, phone brightness all the way down. You start searching. Winners have months to claim. Some can stay anonymous, some cannot. Taxes arrive before the fantasy gets comfortable. Every article says the same thing. Sign nothing, tell almost nobody. Get professional help before you walk through any official door. You almost call your mother. Her contact is actually open on your screen. Before you stop yourself, you can picture her joy, and then you can picture her telling one person she trusts completely that one person has a husband, that husband has a sister, that sister has a Facebook account, and too much time. The loneliness that follows is unlike anything before. That evening you buy a small fireproof safe with cash from a store 3 neighborhoods over. The cashier barely looks up. You care enough for both of you, for the entire building, honestly. Part 3: The first calls you make before celebration. You don't claim anything the next day. Instead, you sit in your car behind a grocery store and call an attorney. Your voice sounds strange when you say the words, "I think I may have a winning lottery ticket," like you are reporting something you witnessed, not something that happened to you. The attorney doesn't gasp, doesn't congratulate you, just starts asking questions. Where did you buy it? What time? Has anyone else touched it? Have you signed the back? Don't sign the back yet. He says you had imagined celebration. Instead, you have just entered administration. There are forms, deadlines, identity documents, claim procedures, and decisions that cannot be undone. The very first real question is not what will you buy. The first real question is how visible are you about to become. The accountant explains withholding estimated taxes, the gap between the number on the news and the number that will actually arrive in your account. The jackpot that got announced on television was a headline. Your money will be a document, a careful, complicated, heavily taxed document. What you begin to understand slowly and then all at once is that winning is not the same as receiving wealth. Winning is being handed a machine with no instruction manual. Everyone tells you to slow down. Slowing down is the hardest thing you have ever attempted. You catch yourself laughing once at how absurd this all is, then you check the lock again. Part 4: The day the paper becomes real. The claims office looks nothing like what you imagined. It looks like any other government building. Waiting chairs, fluorescent lights, a front desk with a staff member who has clearly done this before and will do it again after you leave. They check your ID, check the ticket, check your ID again. The woman's face gives you nothing. Professionals learn to keep drama out of their expression. The machine reads what your heart has known for days. There is a confirmation, then a waiting room, then another room with slightly nicer furniture. You sign where they tell you after. Your attorney reads every single line. Your signature looks impossibly small for the weight it is carrying. Someone says congratulations and the word sounds so inadequate it almost makes you want to laugh. You smile in the way that a person smiles when they are trying to remember what smiling looks like. The camera catches your face but completely misses the quiet panic sitting just underneath it. When you walk out, the world looks exactly the same as when you walked in. No fanfare, no soundtrack, just a parking lot, afternoon traffic, and a folder full of copies that have now changed the entire trajectory of your existence. That night the secret becomes too heavy to carry alone. You tell one person, their face changes before they can catch it. Just for half a second they hug you first, then they ask how much that is. The first crack, the first visible line running through what used to be normal. Part 5, Spending money that doesn't feel real yet. The transfer arrives as digits on a screen inside a private account. You refresh the page 3 times, the number looks like a website error. There is no glow around it, no ceremony, just commas in places where you have never seen commas before. The first thing you do is pay off debt, because debt has been breathing on your neck for so long you forgot what your neck felt like without it. Credit cards gone, old loans gone, the specific anxiety that used to arrive with every envelope gone. Then you buy something small, almost comically small given the circumstances: a proper chair, a warm coat, a hotel room with towels thick enough to mean it. You test comfort the way an animal tests an open space, carefully, one step at a time, ready to retreat. Better phone, real mattress, a car that doesn't make that sound anymore, food not chosen based on what is marked down. Salespeople learn your name faster than co-workers at your old job ever bothered to. You begin noticing that money doesn't just buy things, it buys speed, silence, and easier versions of human behavior. The first request from family arrives dressed up as a regular conversation. Someone needs help with a car situation, then rent, then a business idea that just needs a little starting capital. Saying yes feels like love, saying no feels like a crime you are committing against people you grew up with. Part 6, The people who love you differently now. Your relationships don't end, they change temperature. People pause before complaining about money around you now. Friends get strange at dinner, some insist on paying their exact share with theatrical energy, others quietly forget their card with a softness that feels slightly too rehearsed. A cousin reaches out after 6 years, just wants to stay connected. Family is important, you know how it is. An old friend mentions that a blessing this size was probably meant to spread. A neighbor asks whether what they heard is true while somehow pretending not to be asking anything at all. The attorney helps you build a structure around giving, a process, a framework, but boundaries sounds cold when you actually say it to someone looking at you across a kitchen table where you used to share meals. You learn that genuine need has no natural ceiling. There is always another emergency, another once-in-a-lifetime situation. You lie awake doing math that no spreadsheet can actually solve. The money gave you freedom, then it made every human interaction slightly more expensive to read. You miss being liked by someone who had absolutely nothing to gain from it. Part 7, The professionals who guard you and also control everything. At some point your life develops a gate around it. Attorney, accountant, investment advisor, insurance specialist, they speak in calm voices about exposure, allocation, liability, and risk tolerance. You learn enough to understand when something dangerous is being described. You are not yet fluent enough to ignore them when they are worried. The investment advisor explains that keeping this money is not a passive activity. Cash loses value while it sits still. Markets shift, tax laws change, people file lawsuits against wealthy individuals the way they file complaints casually. Hopefully your money must be placed, protected, and regularly reviewed. You create accounts you are not allowed to touch. Your old banking app becomes irrelevant. Your new financial dashboard is more complicated than anything you have ever tried to understand. A professional eventually tells you what you can safely spend in a year. You laugh, then realize even that large number can be exceeded by a careless life. The strangest part is paying people to tell you no. Before all this, no came from your bank balance. Now no comes from a person in a good suit protecting you from yourself. You are not just wealthy, you are administratively wealthy. Your freedom comes with meeting signatures and people whose entire job is to be suspicious of opportunity on your behalf. Part 8, The beautiful life that feels like someone else's. You move, eventually privacy becomes more valuable than the familiar. The new place is exactly what you used to look up online during lunch breaks when you needed to briefly imagine a different life. For the first weeks you walk through it at night like a guest who hasn't quite been convinced they are allowed to stay. The neighborhood is maintained quiet, polite people wave from driveways without asking questions, and you begin to understand this is its own kind of luxury. Your old neighborhood had noise that meant people knew you were there. This place has cameras, landscaping, and a silence that deepens after 8 o'clock. You travel because you finally can. Airports are genuinely different when you go through them differently. The friction disappears. You sit where there is actual space, sleep in beds that understand what a bed is supposed to do. Comfort, when consistently present, stops being noticeable, and when comfort stops being noticeable you realize it was never really the thing you were after. Without a job you have to invent structure that work used to impose on your days. You try things, cooking classes, a trainer, a language you always meant to learn, a boat, some art. Some of it brings real joy, some of it just confirms you can afford it, which is not the same thing as wanting it. You learn that leisure without something that actually matters to you is just another space to feel lost inside, and you cannot say any of this out loud without sounding ungrateful, which means the loneliness stays in the room with you unspoken, because sat in a beautiful house is a sentence that ends conversations instead of starting them. Part 9, What power actually feels like when you are standing in it. The excitement phase doesn't end because you grow as a person, it ends because repetition erodes the extraordinary. Another upgrade, another yes delivered too quickly by someone who wants something. You start looking for something that money cannot immediately flatten into ordinary. You decide to do something useful. A foundation sounds like the right answer until you meet everything that lives behind that word. Grant applications. A board with opinions. Funding cycles. Compliance. Giving money away responsibly turns out to be one of the most demanding things you have ever attempted, infinitely harder than simply handing someone a check and walking away. The first handwritten thank you letter you receive makes you cry in a way the bank balance never did. Real tears from somewhere deep and uncalculated. Then more letters arrive, more requests, more decisions about who receives help this cycle and who goes on a wait list. You understand now that power is not primarily the ability to say yes. Power is surviving the faces connected to your no. Your name gets attached to narratives you had no part in writing. Lucky, generous, changed, fake, wasteful, blessed, selfish. You become evidence in arguments happening in comment sections and dinner tables and conversations you will never be present for. You find yourself treasuring the handful of people who still push back when you say something wrong, who disagree with you not because they have nothing to lose but because they respect you enough to tell you the truth. These people become rare, valuable, and occasionally exhausting in the best possible way. Part 10. What the ticket never mentions on the back. Years go by. The ticket, if you still have it, is somewhere safe and completely unimpressive. A faded paper rectangle that looks like absolutely nothing. It is almost offensive in its ordinariness. This small piece of paper that split your life into a before and an after as cleanly as anything ever has. Before, your problems were smaller. They were also closer. They had your address. They knew your schedule. They followed you to sleep. After, your problems became larger, stranger, and nearly impossible to describe without watching someone's sympathy quietly curdle into well, must be nice. You have learned the private language that comes with this kind of life. Never answer financial questions quickly. Never invest from excitement. Never give from guilt without a structure behind the giving. Never mistake someone's attention for their affection. Never confuse who has access to you with who is actually loyal to you. And at the same time, money genuinely matters. Anyone who says otherwise has probably never felt the physical fear of not knowing how a bill gets paid. Money healed real things in your life. It bought medical care that couldn't wait, rest you were too exhausted to find, on your own safety you had spent years pretending not to need. The wind didn't manufacture shallowness in you. It found the cracks that were already there in friendships and family dynamics and habits and your idea of who you were when things were hard. Some people stayed and learned how to love you across this change. Some left because you disappointed their fantasy. Some had to be actively removed because their need had become a form of control. You grieved all of it more than anyone looking at your life from outside would believe is possible. There are still mornings, even now years later, when you wake up with that old panic firing before your eyes are fully open. 1 second where your body is certain you are late behind, trapped out of options. Then the room returns, the quiet, the calendar that belongs to you. The day with no mandatory shape. Relief arrives first, then something heavier settles in right behind it. Because what you understand now, what took all of this to finally understand, is that freedom is not the removal of pressure. Freedom is choosing which pressures are actually worth your life. The lottery handed you choices at a speed that outpaced any wisdom you had time to build. That was the real cost, not disaster, not ruin. The cost was becoming responsible for a life that had run out of excuses. And sometimes you will see someone buying a ticket after work, tired, in that specific recognizable way, sliding it into their wallet without really thinking about it, already returning to their small worries. You almost want to say something, not because winning is the wrong thing to hope for, not because the dream is dishonest, but because the dream only ever shows you the door, it never tells you about the rooms.